Good afternoon, everyone. Also, good morning to those that might be in other time zones. I'll get started just with a little introduction for now, while I can see that people are still logging in. So my name is Brian Hasha, and I'm a Senior Policy Analyst here at our Policy Institute. I welcome you to our joint webinar with Statistics Canada, Data for Rural Communities, Taking Stock and Looking Forward. I would just do a quick introduction to today's session, telling you a bit about NPI and today's speaker, Mahamat. Before going ahead, NPI would like to acknowledge the First Peoples on whose traditional territories we live and work. We are grateful for the opportunity to have our offices located here. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of these lands. Each community is home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We recognize and appreciate the historical connection that Indigenous people have to these territories. We support their efforts to sustain and grow their nations. We also recognize the contributions that they have made in shaping and strengthening local communities, the province, and Canada. So I'll tell you a little bit about NPI as well. So NPI is Northern Ontario's independent evidence-driven think tank. We have permanent offices in Thunder Bay, Sudbury, and Kirkland Lake. We perform research, analyze data, and disseminate ideas. Our mission is to enhance Northern Ontario's capacity to take the lead position on socioeconomic policy that impacts our communities, our province, our country, and our world. And on today's speaker, we have Mahamat, and Mahamat is Chief in the Center for Special Business Projects at Statistics Canada. He manages rural data projects in which he focuses on the development of data, analysis, and visualizations. He also manages a number of other products related to businesses' performances, and he also holds a Ph.D. in economics. Today's session has been scheduled for 1 hour. We'll begin with a presentation of about 30 minutes, and after that, we're going to have a Q&A session. So we should have lots of time for the questions you may have after the presentation during the Q&A session. And without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Mahamat. Please go ahead, Mahamat.
Thank you. Let me share my presentations. Can you see the presentations?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Brian, for the introductions. Yeah, before moving on to the presentation, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the webinar organizers, the participants, as well as our partner in this Rural Data Initiative, the Center for Rural Economic Development, CENRED. So today's presentation is about data for rural communities, taking stock and looking forward. Today's presentation proceeds as follows. First, we'll discuss rural data disaggregations. Next, we'll highlight the work accomplished in the first year and outline the work pillar for this fiscal year, as well as how we're planning to expand the rural data initiative. And lastly, we will discuss, we'll describe the next step for continuing data disaggregations. What is rurals? Basically, there is no clear-cut answer to that. The appropriate definition should be determined by the question being raised. The term rurals has a multiple definition and meanings. Earlier in 2000s, Duplessis and colleague identified different definitions used by StatCan. These were based on the relative weighting of population size, density, and distance to agglomerations. So their recommendations after writing this paper, they came to the conclusion that rurality be classified according to the natures and the need of a specific studies. We know that national statistic office across the globe typically use definition across these three lines: population size, population density, distance to agglomerations, and combination of these three dimensions may result in different landscape, diverse rural opportunity and challenge. So when it came to data disaggregations, the challenge remained the definition of subgroup, and this also applied to rural area. As you can see, for example, here, the definition can be applied in Milton, Ontario, which is surrounded by many agglomerations, especially like, Brantford, Oakville, Hamilton, and the great Toronto area could be different from the one that could be applied to the town of Elseros in Saskatchewan. Two prevailing definitions of rural use by StatCan, the standard ones that is used by the census, and this one captures what is generally perceived as a rural landscape, that is area that are not built up and outside of urban environment. For instance, a large share of populations of this area are likely to commute to urban area, have urban job and lifestyle. Their access to services and amenities is more similar to that of people living in urban core than that of people living in remote area. The definitions apply by small towns. This is more, is generally more suitable for rurals. And that is basically the definition that we apply in most of the product that we deliver here. So what are the needs of rural, what are the data needs of rural Canadians? In general, individuals, businesses, and organizations in rural area are interested in the same type of information as the rest of Canadians. And this interest span from demography to societies, to economy, to the environment, and so on. So having defined the need of rural Canadians, as the first stage in 2021, to set the stage, we launched the Rural Canada Statistic Portals. And the portal actually serves as a focal point for rural data produced by StatCan and rural statistic information and analysis. This facilitates access and dissemination of rural related statistics. Even though the focus is dedicated on rural data and analysis, from time to time, we also highlight output and other statistical programs that bring a rural lens. As you can see here, in this rural Canada statistical portals, you have, for example, features. You can search using these features, or you have also the rural, small, and towns. So we publish for many of the product that we're releasing a StatCan that have a rural length. And in addition to the length of the Rural Canada Statistical Portal, we also produce others output during the fiscal year 21-22. This product that has been released relate on analysis, leveraging the the survey, the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. We produce basically 4 releases, the first to fourth quarter during the 21 fiscal years, calendar year, sorry. And in addition to that, we also produce a rural Canada business profile, and also produce data visualization tool that highlights rural employment as an employment for this one. And part of our outreach activities in October 2021, we held a workshop in collaboration with CENRED, the OECD, and the UNs. I'm going to present here. I'm going to just show you here a few analyses drawn on the result of the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions to present the most common challenge rural businesses face over the short and medium run. Include in these also business adaptation and adjustment, business performance, labor, revenue expenditures, wage, salary, and other earning. So the chart in the right hand side of this presentation actually provide the key insight for the analysis that were produced in the fourth quarter of 2022. As you can see here, over 3/5 of rural businesses expect rising inflations to be an obstacle over the next 3 years, 3 months. Following this are also considered to be an obstacles is the rising cost of input, transportation cost, and rising interest rate and debt cost. As I mentioned, in the first years, we released the Rural Canada Business Profile. The result that I'm showing here is the result that we released actually last Friday. The first years of the Rural Canada Business Profile covered the years 2017 to 2019. And last Friday, actually, we released the result for 2020. As you know, lack of comprehensive financial information for rural SME pose a challenge for evaluating financial health and limit also stakeholders' ability to make informed decisions. So information from the Rural Canada Business Profile can be used as a benchmark to inform decisions such as whether or not to start or continue operating a business. In this database, we produce more than 30 business performance benchmark, and this is grouped by a profitable and non-profitable business as well as by NAICS. So the key highlight from the release that we released last Friday, as you can see here, in 2020, there were nearly 300,000 small businesses located in rurals, comprising of 15.5% of all small businesses in Canada. In terms of medium-sized businesses located in rurals, there were a little bit above 7,500 units. This make about 15.1% of medium-sized businesses. And the number of small businesses, as you can see from what's shown here, is declining from 2019 to 2020. And this is 4.1% that has been recorded in the rural area and 4.9% for their urban counterpart. The dashboard actually has been released in the first years during the calendar years of 21. And this dashboard actually provide employment and unemployment rate in rural area of Canada. As you can see here, you can just, this is already published, so you can go and surf in order to see, for example, what is appropriate for you. So the data is actually been produced by NAICS, 2-digit NAICS. The geography actually cover all the provinces. Territory are not covered in these ones. And in terms of employment is provide for all employment as well as the self-employed. And the year actually spanned from 2011 to the most recent year, I believe is 2022. And this already out there, we continue updating this as the data became available. So what are going to be the pillar for this fiscal year? We continue spending on the outlooks. That is mean the using the Canadian Survey on Business Condition. We will continue producing this, daily that are going to be released every quarter on the daily, which is the main vehicle for releasing a statistical Canada product. In addition to that, for this fiscal years, we also working on developing a rural proximity measure aligned with the Statistic Canada quality of life. And this take into account key dimension of quality of life, such as access to services and amenity, such as school, healthcare, and public transit. In terms of rural snapshot, for this fiscal year, actually, we're focusing on building a housing database that is targeted for rurals. And in this database, what we're planning to do is to bringing information already contained in the Canadian Housing Program, supplementing this with information from building permit to consider this as the intention for construction, as well as investment in residential buildings. And this, for now, actually considers residential building. We're not working on non-res at this point. In terms of outreach and continuing also enhancing the rural Canada statistical portals, these are work are underway. And we're planning to organize also to hold actually a session during the Canadian Economic Associations to show to showcase a few of the work that we are doing right now at the Center for a Special Business Project. So as I mentioned, the proximity measure actually built in the work, actually the work of the proximity measure database is started in collaboration, in partnership with the Canadian Housing Mortgage Housing Program corporations. That was in 2020s. And the main actually work that is done back then was guided by the concept of walkable neighborhood. And we know that may not apply to rurals because especially in rural, so we cannot imagine, for example, walkable distance to amenity could be one element that we take. So here, so for this database that we're planning to construct is going to take amenity spares and amenity scarce. That is mean like, area that are driving distance that is less than 30K and those who are more than 30K kilometers. So as you know, nearly 20% of Canadians live in amenity-dense neighborhood, predominantly located in metropolitan area or agglomerations. And rural area do not typically provide the shorter distance access to 8 services, defining as the amenity-dense area. So what are we planning to explore to be part of this rural data initiative in order to expand the current data that we built? One of them is to build a database that is going to comprise of for-profit as well as non-for-profit businesses. The first release of this actually was released last summer. We're planning to release the second wave of the for-profit, non-for-profit businesses next spring. And this database provide account, revenue, as well as employment for profit businesses, and in both rural and urban area. And the geographical aggregation for this is by Canada, provinces, as well as by NAICS, and also by international classification of non-profit organizations. So this is something that we're planning to release, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in March the 3rd. So stay tuned, and that is something coming, is underway. Another project actually that also we're exploring at this point is the small area estimations on business indicators. And we leverage on the Canadian Survey of Business Conditions to come up with more geographical degradation of selected business indicators to be classified by self-contained labor area. So anticipated release of this database is scheduled to be also released before the end of the fiscal years. More specifically is next month on February. And the last one as an exploratory project that we're planning to take is to build a community and regional database. This database, as most of you guys know, started a few years ago within the agriculture division within the Statistics Canada. And now we're planning actually to aggregate all the result from the census. Actually, the last one actually is, I believe, is up to 1996 census. So we're planning to update that to be to the most current census data available 2021. And this is going to be a rich database that could also support the research and analysis on socioeconomic condition of Canadian communities. So as I mentioned, the rural Canada non-for-profit that was released, we released that a short article in the Daily accompanied by an infographic, and result key insight from the 2019 showed that there were over 130 active non-for-profit in Canada. And why we're saying active? Because we consider only businesses that show positive revenue and employment in the BR. That means like those who report during that exercise a positive revenue and employment. And these constitute basically nearly 22.5% were located in rural Canada. The Rural Canada organization employed also almost 11.6% of all non-for-profit employees and were responsible of the generation of 7.3% of revenue as well. Over half of all rural NPO, we notice that are located in Quebec, Ontario, and Alberta. Here's I'm showing in this slide the smaller estimations methodology that you're using to supplement the result of the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions. So the map here actually showed the result for the service sectors, service providing sectors. And as you can see, the left-hand side provide the direct estimate from the Canadian Survey on Business Conditions, and the right-hand side provide the result when the small area estimation technique is applied. And the main idea of you know, applying this methodology, we know that there is a growing demand for reliable small area statistic, but sample size are too small to provide a direct estimate. And a model based estimate can correct that. And we use the small area estimations technique to estimate the response in the subpopulation with a few or no sample observations. So the indicator actually we use in this one as a pilot is the teleworking business that offer teleworking agreement. And as you can see here in these two graphs, or wherever you see in the left-hand side map, what is show gray, that mean there's no estimate from the Canadian Survey in Business Conditions. And when you see on the right hand, we've been able, for example, to use this small area estimation to accommodate for that. And the pinks are the one actually do have result, but are saying like basically they do not offer teleworking arrangement. So taking specifically the gray area here, the SLA 24, after applying the small area estimation technique, we were able to produce estimate which is equal to 0.3. That means 30% of people, businesses located in this SLA offer teleworking agreement. In addition to the work that we're doing, also the centers of labor information are also working on similar type of aggregating indicator to be released on self-contained labor area. And that may offer, for example, geographical dimension which are defined as local community pattern rather than administrative boundaries. And this will complement existing indicators which are based on the CMA, the CA boundary, and include all the area of Canada. The new labor's market indicator reflect the local conditions as opposed to rural average value for an entire province. As you know, several data for the census 2021 of population as well as census of agriculture have been released during the 2022. And increased data availability and use of geographical reference data are providing new opportunity for rural data, including possibility for geographical degradation in many statistical programs. So the example that I'm giving here for this statistical release, you may be able, for example, to see the aggregation by CMA-CA as well as the non-CMA-CA. We did not provide a link, but we'll be able to share the presentations and also include the link to this product before sharing the presentation with you. Also, a key insight from 2021 census showed that rural population is growing in an absolute terms. And the count show also a continuation on long-term trend observed in rural Canada. As you can see from the chart presented here for the population count, the left-hand side actually use the CMA-CA definitions, and the right-hand side using the population centers. And this is a result for 2016 and 2021. So it can be easily seen that, populations count have shown continuation of long-term trend. And this over the land hold also true, as you can see, regardless of a rural definition that is used. although count and growth rate would be slightly different depending on the definitions. So what are we looking to spend on the Rural Data Initiative? I will continue spending on rural disaggregation to statistical programs. We'll collaborate, dialogue with rural stakeholders. And our goal also is to implement a shared rural data strategies. So to seek opportunities, we have an inbox, which is called Rural Client Services. I showing here the emails. So if you have a comment, you can just send through this, and we'll be able to respond to this. Thank you, and this finish, the presentation for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mahamat, for the great presentation. And we will now start the Q&A session. We will rotate between questions that were written in the Q&A box and also those who have raised their hands. If you wish to raise your hands, we will let you know when you can unmute yourself, and then you're going to be able to use a microphone, and if you wish, your camera as well, to ask your question directly to the speaker. And we also ask you to, apart from follow-up questions, of course, we ask you to please ask one question at a time to allow more people to also ask their questions. So I will start with a question in the chat. The question is, are remote areas also classified under rural areas?
The definition, actually, like I mentioned earlier, the definition for rurals that we use in the product that we released so far is mainly based on what is outside of CMA-CA. So if remote felt to be in this category, yeah, definitely can be considered as a rural area.
So now I'll just go through the next question in the chat, and then we're gonna give someone who raised their hand the option to speak next. So the question is, will the rural data collection focuses help fill any current gaps in data that is routinely collected? For example, the CCHS does not have enough data to present certain information on specific rural areas, such as Kenora. So there just isn't data available, or it's flagged that it needs to be used with caution.
Can you say that again? Sorry,
Yeah, of course. So will the rural data collection focuses help fill any current data gaps in data that is routinely collected? So will these new focuses help fill any of these current gaps? And the example was that there is not enough data to present certain information on specific areas, such as Kenora, for example. Or the data that is available just flags that the data needs to be used with caution.
Alessandro, can you take on that?
I can address this. I think the example that Mahamat provided on the work we're doing with small area estimation methods could help also for this type of issue. Again, this methodology, we started with an application to the Canadian Business of Survey Condition, but could be applied to any survey program on the business side and on the social side, and as long as we can find some additional data to be integrated with the survey data. For the business side, that would be the business register. For the social side that could be census of population. So there could be possibility there, and we would be happy to discuss after our first release that will happen in February. Thanks.
Okay, so now if we can give Gary access to his microphone so he can ask his question.
Yes, Gary.
You can unmute yourself, Gary. Should be able to. So, Gary, did you receive the invitation to unmute? Oh, there we go. You can try now.
Just a minute, Patrick.
Oh, there we go. We can hear you now.
Hello.
Hi there.
One of the research that's been done on the northern parts of Ontario in terms of the metropolitan regions of Thunder Bay and Sudbury, when it comes to terms of the expectations, like you had services, you had, I think on the map it showed access to services, right? On the map, is that accurate when you say that?
Yeah, the result actually, we for the small area estimations, we're planning to release first by SLA, that is the aims, but we're releasing also for to be by good producing service providing industry, and that is going to show also the result. Is going to be basically an aggregation of the CA, from CA up to using the NAICS, grouping of NAICS to be able, for example, to aggregate all those who are falling under, good producing and service providing sectors.
Yeah, because the economy is changing in the north, where a lot of it's becoming service-based, where the industry is not as prevalent. Now mining is starting to take off again here in the north. So there's actually a change now in the direction of the economy up north. It is becoming a lot more becoming a service sector.
I totally agree with you, Gary, on that. And the main intuition when we decide, for example, to come up with this type of aggregations, especially taking, for example, the teleworking, arrangement, we know that, especially for service providings, they tend, for example, to offer this flexibility when compared, for example, to good producing, because in order to produce, you have to be, for example, physically present. But for businesses that tend, for example, to provide the service, they may also allow this type of arrangement to their employee. So if you notice that, in North Bay, businesses tend to shift from good producing to service, we need to have many data, many releases in order, for example, to see this happening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we'll go forward with the next question in the written question. So question is, when disaggregating data for census subdivisions, will your team be relying on 2016 boundaries or 2021 boundaries? Some Statistics Canada products are still relying on the former.
Yeah, for the most of the previous release we rely on 2016, but we are planning to move toward using 2021s for upcoming releases.
Okay, so we're going to go forward with another question, another written question. And the question is, will Indigenous identifiers be included within these databases or initiatives? Data gaps are exacerbated in case of Indigenous population residing in rural or Northern Ontario.
Yeah, Alessandro, will let you take on that.
Yeah, this remains a challenge for many statistical programs. So again, we're not the only one developing new statistical product. I know that there are some initiative across the agency. There is one, for instance, on identifying Indigenous businesses. So we started to produce some statistics on that. Of course, the challenge comes when you have this intersectionality of rural and other minority group or Indigenous group. So that remains a challenge. So we are definitely looking into that. But again, we don't have any specific product at this point. Well, our group, and maybe something that we should really look at for the next fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. So now we'll provide Anik access to your microphone, so you're going to be able to ask your question live. You should be able to unmute yourself now. Did you receive the invitation to unmute your microphone? In the meantime, I'm just going to go forward to the next written question, just so, I see you're able to unmute. Please go ahead. We can't hear you yet, so I'm just going to go forward to the next written question, and we're going to circle back right after this question to you. So the next written question is, how do you plan to use this data going forward?
How are we planning to use the data going forward?
Doing a lot of analysis, but we also welcome your analysis. I hope many rural researchers and stakeholders will start to use the data that we put out. And again, there is a lot that can be analyzed with this information. We will do some of that, but really we hope to work in collaboration with an institution like yours and many other research centers across Stats Canada to develop analytical products as well.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go back to you, Nick. Would you be able to unmute yourself?
Yes, Anik?
So we can't hear you. If you were able to type your question in the chat, I'll be able to read it next for you. So while we wait for this question, I'm just going to go for the next written question. And it is, can you clarify the definition of rural areas used in your work? Given that standard geographical classification defines rural areas as being both inside and outside the CMAs and CAs, is that the same approach you use?
The rural definition actually we use here is non-CMA, non-CA / CA. That is the definition that we use here.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next written question, and then we're going to go to another live question is the portal free to access? And does it require a sign up or some form of registration and login?
The portal actually is free to access. We'll send you the link, after the meeting today. And people who don't, who like to visit, the website, they will be able to do so.
Thank you very much. So now we're gonna give Brian access to his microphone so he can ask his question. Brian, you can unmute yourself at any time now. I'm sorry for the difficulties with the. I'm not sure if you're getting the invitation. I'm just gonna chat in the private chat for now. So I'm gonna go next with the next written question. And the question is, will the portal allow for ad hoc geographic boundary segmentations or agglomerations for data visualization by postal code, by user-defined boundary using a map overlay or section document?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, selection technique.
Mahamat, I can comment on that one.
Yeah.
Again, we have a rural data viewer. We developed that with open source technology, so it was very convenient. It doesn't have all the GIS capability, but all the data that are shown there can be downloaded and of course can be reaggregated in any form. So that can be done by just downloading the data, and then you can import in an open source GIS software like QGIS and do any type of aggregation. But if you have specific needs for data aggregation, the other thing that you can do is contact us, and we can see if we can help you with specific aggregation. But we don't use postal code, however. We use a standard geographic concept from the dissemination block app, depending on the data set. Anyway, so those are the two options. Either you download the data and then do manipulation at your end. Otherwise, again, contact us and we can see if we can do any aggregation that you need. Thanks.
Thank you. So the next question I have is from Anik. So how do you plan to help connect data gap at municipal level and rural level? Statistics Canada is trying to improve disaggregation from both perspectives, and the challenge is to get this done in a way that provides those different perspectives.
It is certainly a challenge. So we we are working with our colleagues, on the municipal data initiative. Again, the challenge with that is oftentimes when we're talking about municipal data, the focus is really on large municipality, cities, the urban area, and it's really difficult to keep a focus on more remote rural area, and that's what we're trying to do with this rural data initiative. It's really to focus on smaller communities. So there is obviously a lot of integration between the two perspectives.
Thank you very much. So for now, I'm going to go forward with the next written question, and it is, how is defined rural businesses? So by location, ownership, commercial operation, or by all of the above?
More is by location. We try to using, for example, businesses that are located in non-CMA CA. We consider this to be rural businesses. So the definition is more like based on the locations rather than ownership.
Okay, thank you. So the next question.
And it's making sense. If we have to go by ownership, a person may live in urban area and own also a business in rural area. So if we like to attribute that to the owners, the business has to be like urbanized and more rural. So we consider businesses that are located in rural area based on the definition that we use to be categorized as rural businesses.
Okay, thank you very much. And next question, who is involved in developing the shared rural data strategy?
We started actually with our partner to develop that, but definitely is something that we need also to engage with the different stakeholders. We have a draft, and when opportunity arises, we'll be able to share with different stakeholders and seek also comment in order to improve that.
Yeah, if I can add on that, yeah, it's very important to have your inputs and feedbacks. That's why we try to connect with various stakeholders, and mainly through rural research centers across Canada, and of course with researchers and academics involved in rural research. So, but we would like to hear from you. Again, any input that you can provide to our functional rural inbox, that would be much appreciated.
Okay, thank you. So I'm just going to go for the next question. Please interrupt me at any time if you want to add anything to the previous question as well. When is the community and regional database anticipated to be available?
At this point, we did not actually set a date to be able to release that, but definitely it's something that we're planning to focus on starting the new fiscal year.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, and Brian will cycle back to you in a moment, but the next question is, when will the rural indicators, rural labor market, be available instead of the current provisional averages?
I can answer to that. This is a bit of a challenging question. Again, we don't have a date that is set for release. We're working with our colleagues in the Labor Statistics Division, and they are improving the estimation, the modeling work for the estimation. Again, they want to make 100% sure that once that is released, that will be in production. and release monthly all the update release of the labor LFS with the force survey. So be patient, but we're quite sure that this is coming. And again, it will be a major improvement because you will really have labor market indicator by rural labor market, which is quite an announcement. So, and on our side, we hope to continue to produce business indicator by rural labor market again. So you will have the business and the labor market side by, again, rural labor market. So.
You want to add anything, Mahamat, or I proceed?
No.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So the next question is first, they said it's an excellent update. Thank you very much. And they're curious if your team has regular conversations with the provincial and territorial local government municipal associations. And they know they will be following up with you on behalf of ours, or their government.
We have occasional conversation with, again, various type of stakeholders. We connected a couple of times with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, the rural group, and maybe we should have more connection with the provincial level. I think we had a meeting with Ontario, people from Omafra, few months ago, if I remember correctly, Mahamat. But again, we would really welcome the possibility to connect with provincial governments, stakeholders, and other stakeholders. So, if you have suggestion for us to share this presentation or connect and discuss with the various group at the local level or provincial level or territorial level, we would certainly be more than happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. So, so unfortunately, this will be, I believe, one of the few last questions. So Ray Bowman said, I think it's more of a comment, but said that we might also analyze remoteness via Malaysia, Alessandro Frederick there, and then he included here a citation. So measuring remoteness and accessibility, a set of indices for Canadian communities from 2017.
Yeah, actually on that, I can add that a few days ago, we released the 2021 update of the index of remoteness. And again, this is becoming another dimension that we use to measure remoteness, and another indicator that we use to measure this dimension. And again, you can download the database from the Stats Canada website. We can share the link to that resources. And you could also combine the two dimensions, the rural and small town classification with an index of remoteness. So more granular classification of rural.
Thank you very much. And we'll try going back to Brian. We're going to send you an invitation to share a microphone. And while we'll do that, I'm going to go forward with the next written question. So the question is, has Statistics Canada explored or considered other opportunities outside of your surveys and census, such as crowdsourcing, in order to fill the niche needs of rural communities?
Open source, it may not be targeted to the rural audience, but we built a few databases based on open source that is part of the LOAD, linkable open data environment. We also may be able to send you the link to all these releases that we produce within the Center for a Special Business Project for the last few years. But in terms of rural, it may be challenging to get more open source type of information in order to be able to aggregate that. But definitely, if you guys have the suggestions or directions that you want us to take, we'll be happy to explore that.
Yeah. In addition to the resource that Mahamat mentioned, I'd like to say that there are a lot of initiatives in this direction across Stats Canada, a lot of groups that are looking at alternative data sources. And definitely we've done quite a lot of that. The Center for Special Business Project, not specifically for rural, but the work that we did, for instance, on proximity measure that was presented by Mahamat is partially developed with open source databases. So we compile this database and then we use it to develop proximity measures. Again, it's a little bit more challenging for some rural area to find that information. But there are an increasing number of methods to generate some of this information. For instance, the use of satellite imagery for some information related to land use or environmental use. But again, there are a number of initiatives, and we would be also open to suggestions in this respect.
Thank you very much. So recognizing the time and thanking everyone for being here, but also recognizing that we still have unanswered question in the Q&A box. We just wanted to let everybody know that we will get back to you if your question wasn't answered. We took notes. We took note of your question, and I would like to thank Mahamat and Alessandro for being here and for the very interesting presentation. And also I'd like to thank everyone for the attendees for also being here and for the very interesting questions. So please feel free to add anything, Mahamat and Alessandro.
Yeah, thank you actually for attending the presentations. And as I highlighted during the presentation, we have an inbox. So if you have questions, please direct it to us, and we'll be more than happy to answer to these questions. Thank you.
Just reiterate the thank you for this opportunity to share. And again, we will be more than happy to engage in any further discussion or listen to your suggestions. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.